Dr. Foster, you made mention of the word denial a little while ago, a few years back in my life, and I don't mind sharing this publicly, but if you tell anybody, I'll find you. I was out of work, which means you're almost out of money,
Right.
and out of a lot of other things. And I went to see someone, and they said, you're out of work, so that means you're broke. I said, yes. And they said, something's wrong with your gallbladder, that means you're sick. I said, yes. And they said, looks like your car's not running well. I said, yes. And I accepted all that readily. And they said, and you might be depressed. And I said, oh, no, 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 I'm fine. Why is it that we are so unwilling to accept the fact that there might be something going on up here based on things that are happening out there, especially with parents and their children?
Well, I think as a community or as a culture, a psychiatric illness still has a stigma, and thank God for Dr. Evans and his department, individual practitioners, and even the community, that people are trying to erase the stigma. I think it's one of those things that no one ever talked about. People always had the uncle who was upstairs in the back room who never came out. No one talked about him, and he just pretty much didn't exist. I think because we are living in such a global society now, I got such an influx of patients when The Sopranos came in. I got probably 10 or 15 male, big macho guys who came in.
Because the mafia boss could
because
go and get some
it became okay for him to come in. And I think people are having the dialogue about it now, more so than they did in the past. I think one thing that we are very fortunate to have is that since we have MRIs and we're able to look at cortisol levels and adrenaline levels, that we can start to look at mental illness as a physical illness as opposed to just a mental illness that we don't know what happens and these people are violent and crazy. So if your serotonin levels are low, you will be depressed. If your epinephrine levels are too high, you may exhibit symptoms of bipolarity. So I think that as we're moving forward and we have the science to support it, that we will begin to look at it as just another physical ailment. I mean, if your knee can get sick, why can't your brain get sick? And studies have shown that with chronic stress or chronic overload, and this comes from every day, this doesn't have to be something that one bad thing happened to you. Everyone in this room has been stressed at some point in their life. And at that time, their serotonin levels were low across the board. So I think that once we are able to just have more talks like this, this is so important, and recognizing that this affects not only children, but adults, that things will get better. Also, it's really hard to think that you allowed something terrible to happen to your child. No one wants to admit that. We also are in a culture where sort of like just deal with it, be resilient, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get over it. And I think that now we're starting to learn that that isn't realistic either, that if we have a trauma-informed community who's taking care of people who have been traumatized, I mean, think about what you needed when you were stressed. Can you lend that helping hand to someone else who may be in that position? I think it starts there. So once the community is better informed, I think we all will be more informed and we'll have less of a stigma.